Sweden is the largest producer and exporter of iron in Europe, as well as they are among the leading nations in the production of base and noble metals in the entire world. Their main areas for mining are areas and countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, and northern Russia, which mean more or less all of Sapmi. They have through 3 decades figured out that these regions are extremely rich in minerals, and seen from the economical point of view, that is very beneficial. Due to this, a lot of the exploration is going on these days, and they continue to find more and more potential for these particular areas, especially in Sapmi. As a result of this, mining continues to grow fast in this area, which is not only ruled by Swedish companies, but also international companies has found its way there. Due to all of this, the reindeer herders of Sapmi, especially in the region around Kiruna, have to suffer the reindeer territories because of growing business. If they continue to build mines as planned, the worst case scenario will appear and the herders will not be able to send their herds to the winterlands. The government blames the need of labor in the local villages, and once again the debate regarding the rights of the indigenous people in Sapmi rises, and the questions are flowing in. Is this morally right from a governmental point of view? We have mining exploration everywhere. It's frightening, Lars John Alice, reindeer herder from Kiruna, says, which means yet again that the Sami people have to defend themselves from the government. Despite that the Reindeer Husbandry Act is describing that the Sami people have the rights to use these territories. Matthias Oren, a law professor from the University of Tromsø, claims that the sites are so huge it cuts the Sami communities in half. It's directly on the reindeer migration path. Long story short, reindeer herding will be impossible. Ahead in time, the mining will also create large amounts of waste, which will have to be stored in big empty valleys and ponds left after the mining process. These holes and ponds are often very steep and deep. People or animals that fall into them are much likely not to get out, something that can get fatal consequences. The water in these ponds will also contain large amounts of toxins, which will make it impossible to pursue reindeer herding there again, at least not in the usual way. According to the Swedish constitutional law, the Sami have internationally recognized rights as an indigenous people. Within the UN, all countries work to give indigenous people back their lawful rights to their lands and their culture. It was already back in 1966 when the UN presented the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights that it was stated that everyone in the world has the right to self-determination. In addition to this, conventions have been added to support and to strengthen the rights of vulnerable groups in the society, like the Sami. This proves that the Swedish government clearly is breaking the law against indigenous people and their political rights, as well as they are working towards the UN because they have chosen to refuse the International Labour Organization Convention 169 that gives the indigenous people legal rights over their traditional lands. However, inhabitants of Sapmi do not give up without a fight. Due to exploration and new mines, they have caused riots and unrest for the people who work there. Also, they are putting up roadblocks as well as they lock themselves to trees and machines to avoid firms from getting their work done. Protests have also been held, both in northern Sweden and in Stockholm. In the summer of 2013, activists from across Scandinavia joined the Sami and local people to block and shut down the British company Beowulf's Calyx mine project in northern Sweden. The blockade lasted for over 2 months and was rapidly torn down by the police and security personnel. As a result of this, police were accused of police brutality due to constant violation against activists and protesters. However, the Protestants, the Sami and the non-Sami were detained for resisting arrest and trespassing. Again, we see that the Swedish government are cowardly and protects their own men and tears down the minority. It is very difficult to convince the Swedish majority that reindeer herding is more important than mining, because people treasure money and themselves first. This is why we have human rights, because you can't rely on majority rule in these kinds of decisions, Mattis Arn says from the Sami parliament in Norway. In the start of December 2013, NRK made a documentary stating that the Sami parliaments were seen as a playground because they had no influence or any power at all when it comes to standing up against the governments. Then what is the reason for having them? Aren't the Sami parliaments created to secure Sami interests? Håkan Jonsson, chairman of the board of the Sami parliament in Sweden, states that continued exploitation of Sami is something that the Sami parliament cannot accept, and that they will continue to work for a long-term sustainable community development, and that all the Sami people will get possibilities to live of their traditions and work in Sapmi. However, we are not powerful enough to stand up against governmental decisions yet. Mining is important, and it creates jobs. In fact, it will create 100 new jobs in the city of Kiruna. However, 200 reindeer herders will lose their way of living. Also, the city of Kiruna has to be moved because big cracks occur towards the city. Due to this, the Swedish government continues to allow big mining companies attend the development, even though moving of cities like Kiruna will cost tens of billions of Swedish crowns. Reindeer herders will never again be able to continue herding in these territories, but the Swedish government continues to jeopardize their culture, which is considered by many as to be the basis of Sami culture. If this continues and this culture disappears, the population of Sapmi fears that their ancient culture would soon follow a declining path. Traditional cultures depend on the land use, their livelihoods, Mattias Arn explains. When that disappears, you become a museum culture. You become frozen in time.